Do you want to discover more joy, peace, and freedom with food, exercise, and your body? Here we bring a compassionate, holistic, and sustainable approach to fitness so you can fully enjoy the life you want and express your unique self with the world. I'm Michelle Roscoe, and I want to help you find fitness freedom. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I don't have any notes in front of me. I just have the episode number and a question to bring. Why is it so difficult to have compassion for ourselves? Why is it so difficult? And the reason I ask this is because when it comes to our health, when it comes to our bodies, when it comes to fitness, a big part of a healthy reason or a positive motive for making changes is self-compassion, to do something good for yourself, for your body. And sometimes, actually often in fitness, when we do start with a goal of wanting to lose weight or wanting to change our body composition or wanting to look a certain way, and we have that goal in mind and we want to pursue it at any cost, it can actually be harmful. And I've talked about this idea a lot on this podcast. But if we really want to make positive shifts that last for a long time, and we really want to create new habits that give us better results so we can really be kind to ourselves, enjoy a life that we want, it starts with compassion. So I want to kind of get into what compassion is, why it's so difficult for us to practice that on ourselves, and some things that can help. All right, so what is compassion? Compassion, I love etymology. Ever since I was a kid, I loved etymology, learning about where names come from. My hobby as a kid or young teen, I don't know how old I was looking at behindthename.com, and I would look at the different country origins of names and what they meant, and I thought it was really cool how you could put names together with different meanings. Anyways, etymology. The etymology of compassion, if you look in the dictionary, is from the two root words com or kon, which means with, and passion or pater, which is the root word we get patience from, which means to bear. So you're bearing with. What are you bearing something with? You're bearing suffering, you're bearing pain, you're bearing hurt with yourself, with another. Compassion. I also have recently learned that the Buddhist definition of compassion is to confront someone's suffering face to face. So to see it up close, to see someone suffering. And we can apply that to others when we have compassion. Maybe we see someone hurting and we want to donate to them, or we want to help a friend out. And we can also apply this to ourselves when we see suffering in ourselves, to bear witness to our own suffering and pain, and to want to alleviate it, to help out. And I know that often this is not unfamiliar to you, perhaps, and to many people, that it's so much easier to be compassionate to others, but it's harder to be compassionate with ourselves. And I want to go into why that is, but before, I want to go back into that compassion, that bearing with. Something I learned in 2022, it's 2023, 2022 fall, I took a course with David Bedrick and Simone Soul. He's a therapist, and he talks a lot about shame and unshaming and judging ourselves, how we judge ourselves. And he broke it down so beautifully, and what I took out most from this course was how there are 3 parts to shame and 3 parts with suffering. There's the victim, there's the perpetrator, and there's the witness. And we usually think of just the perpetrator and the victim. So let's just take a very simple example. There are 3 kids playing together in a playground, or in a playground. One of the kids, the victim we'll call him, hits the other kid, hits the victim, just out of the blue, just kicks him in the shins. The victim is hurt, And then there's the witness. That's the other part. If the witness in this situation doesn't say anything and just ignores it or praises the perpetrator or doesn't come to the victim's aid, the witness in some ways is adding pain to the victim by not acknowledging his pain. And that's a very simple example, but this happens so often in abusive dynamics where there's an abuser, there's a victim, and there's a witness in some way. Apologies for that noise. I just got a new email. And I lost my train of thought. So there are 3 parts in an abusive situation to this. And we often, the abuser, of course, they're at fault if they do something wrong and they cause pain and suffering to someone else. That is not good. It's the opposite of compassion. It's causing suffering rather than alleviating it. But we often neglect the witness. And I've found that in a lot of my past situations, not having been witnessed for the pain that I was going through, whether it was self-inflicted, whether I was the perpetrator and the victim, or someone else was causing pain and I was the victim, that lack of witnessing is where shame festers and where shame grows and can become so much bigger. And then you start to believe the witness as well as the perpetrator, and you start to question your own pain. You think, maybe this isn't so bad. If other people don't think that this is wrong, if no one is doing anything about this, I guess this is fine and I just need to suck it up, or I just need to endure, or my pain is not really worth paying attention to. And you start to minimize it. And this is partly perhaps why it is hard to practice compassion, because when we have had painful experiences and suffering done to us and no one was there to witness it, acknowledge it, we conclude that, especially maybe as a child, we conclude that it wasn't that big of a deal. And I know I'm going into like the therapy mental health aspect of things, but I will bring it back to, the other side of things. I don't even have to. I don't have to. There's no shoulds. But with compassion, that if that is compassion, if compassion is not causing harm to ourselves or another, and not permitting harm or pain to another by dismissing it, then we both need to be the witness of our pain and not be the perpetrator of our pain. So, self-compassion. Why is it so difficult to be compassionate to ourselves? Why is it so hard to practice this self-compassion with our own selves? A lot of the times we're okay. We don't want to hurt anyone else. We think, I don't want to be the perpetrator. That's a bad position to be in. I don't want to hurt anyone else, in any way, but I'm okay with causing pain to myself. And we don't acknowledge our own pain that we cause to ourselves. Why do we do this? I think a lot of it maybe comes from growing up and seeing these patterns of being witnessed in pain and no one doing anything about it, or being the victim with even no one to witness it, where we felt like we were alone and we justified that pain. Maybe we hurt ourselves. We were both the perpetrator and the victim. We hurt ourselves with our words, with our actions. I know that I hurt myself a lot when I was in my disordered eating behaviors. I was basically killing my body. I was starving myself. I was depriving myself of what I needed. That was being a huge perpetrator to myself. And in some ways too, I was the witness, and I was allowing that to happen to myself. And thankfully, I eventually had some witnesses that were voices of reason, like my sister, for example, who would cringe and cry when she saw me hurt myself. That was a safe witness, and I'm so grateful to her for being that voice of reason. It was a big part of my recovery. I had that witness to say, this is not okay, this is not right. But yes, we often don't extend that to ourselves. So I think another reason that we find it hard to be compassionate with ourselves is we don't see ourselves as worthy of compassion. And I know this is kind of an obvious one, but it's probably one of the bigger ones. We think that if we're going to the extreme, we think that for some reason we deserve to be in pain. We deserve to be punished. We deserve for bad things to happen to us. We deserve to suffer. And sometimes we do that to ourselves through or with the tools of fitness. We deprive ourselves of food, or we push ourselves a little too hard at the gym, or we keep pushing for these goals or these PRs or this weight on this scale where we are literally hurting ourselves, where something that could be used to be kind to ourselves and live healthier, happier lives turns into this weapon that we use against ourselves. Because we believe that, one, we are not worthy of compassion, that we need to be punished or we need to suffer in order to earn it, or that we deserve punishment for whatever reason. And I know that personally I used these tools of food and exercise as ways to punish myself. We often think that we can earn our way towards being good enough. So if I suffer enough, if I eat right enough, if I lose weight, in our society, it's praised. If a friend or a person loses a significant amount of weight and you haven't seen them for a while, one of the words or phrases that will come up is, wow, you lost weight, congratulations, you look great. And it is something that is difficult, notoriously difficult in our world, in society, to lose weight. So we feel like, yes, I did something special. I earned it. I feel good about myself. Now I can be worthy of compassion. But the thing is that when we rely on other things, other external conditions, or even responses from other people in order to be compassionate to ourselves, there's no end, because there's always a new goalpost. There's always a new standard. It's like this merry-go-round, just like I've talked about before, and what I talk about in the 4-H method. We need to start with the beliefs that we are already worthy and we are powerful. So this is, like anything, a practice. This is difficult, especially if you've been habituated into patterns of being unkind to yourself. And I want to share with you some ways that you can practice some more self-compassion and how that relates to being compassionate with others as well. So let me just go back a little bit. When I was, in this eating disorder mindset, when I was restricting very strongly, I used food as a way to feel good about myself. I liked the praise that I got for eating healthy, for exercising, for being diligent, for losing weight in the beginning especially. I liked that it could distract me. Using food and exercise could distract me from other things that were going on, painful things that were going on in my life. I liked that it gave me a sense of control. So I didn't have to think about those other things. I could just think about, what am I going to eat? Or I'm so hungry, and that consumed my mind. And of course, this was subconscious. I can see it now in hindsight, but I wasn't able to recognize it then. But and it's been a long road. It's not like, okay, I recovered and then, okay, I was so kind to myself. How wonderful. It's been a long road. I think that in the last 2 years, my self-compassion has grown the most in the last 2 years. So, and I started my recovery journey, like, let's say over 10 years ago. So it's not like it was instant. But I realized that if I wanted to be happy long-term, if I wanted to really be healthy, I had to practice more self-compassion. So how do you practice more self-compassion? Here are some ways, and this is not conclusive. This is not in order of priority. I just hope that you can hear these tips and something resonates with you and you can apply it to your life. And that's what I encourage you to do. I'll say this again probably later on, but it doesn't happen by just thinking about it or talking about it or, intending to do it. It happens through practice. And that's why from hope, there's habits in the 4-H method. We don't just, start with these beautiful ideas or thoughts, they take us into practice, and we have to continue to practice them, even when we don't feel like it, even when it's difficult. It's not all like hunky-dory, oh, this is so easy all the time. Of course, it becomes easier over time the more you practice it, and eventually you see those positive results, but it does take practice. So here are some things that you can do to start practicing more self-compassion for yourself, okay? And for others. I'll talk more about others later. So I want to start with that concept I mentioned earlier about witnessing. Just start to notice where there is pain in your life without denying it. And you can take this to fitness. Let's make it applicable to your fitness. And of course, if this applies to bigger areas of your life, please take time to think about this, whether that's your relationships, your job, friends, the way that you're treating yourself in other areas. But let's just take fitness, okay? So think about your current fitness routine and your eating routine. And I want you to be really honest. Just go with your gut. Don't overthink it. Come into your heart, come into your gut. Is my current fitness routine, how I exercise, how I eat, is it causing me pain? Is it hurting me in any way? And it might not even be physically, it might be mentally. Am I being really hard on myself? Or am I pushing myself too much? Am I causing myself pain by not doing anything with exercise or movement? Am I causing myself pain by eating in ways that make me feel like crap? And I'm not talking about deeming foods as bad or good. I'm talking about just eating in a way that objectively, if you saw someone else eat, you would think, oh, that's not very kind. Are you causing suffering in the way that you're eating by not eating enough, or eating erratically, or only eating certain foods and restricting your world of foods to such a small pool that you can only eat a certain amount of certain types of foods, and you don't allow yourself to enjoy foods totally? And only you can answer these questions. You can be honest with yourself here. There's no one else you have to report to. I'm just in your ear right now asking you these questions. Are you causing yourself suffering? And the first step, I think, is validating that pain, being that witness to yourself. If you're being the perpetrator and the victim in how you treat yourself around food and exercise, about your body, you also have to be the witness to yourself. Witness yourself and how you're hurting yourself and say, that is not okay. Even in your relationships, if someone is causing you pain, saying, this is not okay. My needs are not being acknowledged. My needs are not being met. My feelings are not being validated. Whatever it is for you, I can't be my full self. And validating that, just acknowledging there is pain. If someone, so let's go back to those 3 kids on the playground. If that perpetrator, that one bully, hits the other kid on the playground in the shin, kicks him in the shin, a normal reaction for that kid would not be to just, restrain his breath and hold it and just be silent, which is something I did as a kid. And I know for whatever reason, it was not okay to feel pain. I think that has to do with corporal punishment, but that's a different story. A normal reaction for that little kid would be to say, ouch, ow, ow, that hurt, ow. Anger would be a natural reaction. Injustice, a feeling of being betrayed or injustice, would be a normal reaction. So that's a healthy reaction. If you're noticing, wow, I haven't been kind to myself, or, I'm realizing that in my life there are people who are hurting me and situations that are hurting me. And it's not about blaming them or putting all the focus on them. We have to look at what we can do about situations, and we can deal with those other things later, but we have to start with ourselves. Just saying, ouch. Yeah. Damn, I'm tired all the time. Or damn, I'm hungry all the time. Or ouch. Yeah, I'm really not taking care of my body, and I know I could be doing better. Ouch. ouch. Acknowledging that. That's the start of witnessing, and that's the start of self-compassion. The other thing that you can do is listen. So listen to yourself. What is hurting? Where does it hurt? How does it hurt? Starting to practice a little bit more quietness with yourself and being with yourself. And I know that this is what we often avoid because it's really scary. I know. We don't want to do it. But if you could just sit with yourself and think about, where am I hurting? How can I listen to myself? If that kid that was hurt on the playground, he got hurt, ouch. And that witness, said, that was not okay. That was wrong of you to do. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to the kid who got hurt. I'm so sorry that you got hurt. Can you tell me where you hurt? How does it feel? Are you okay? That witness listening to that victim is so healing. That's compassion. That witness is looking that pain in the eye and saying, how can I help? So listening to yourself, validating yourself, not dismissing your feelings, not dismissing how you feel, not dismissing your needs or your desires. And that includes your basic needs of hunger, of sleep. This is where we go so wrong in fitness, is we have these ideas of where we need to be. We have these external standards of how we should look, these numbers in our heads, or these things that we think we should be doing because Betty does it at the gym, or Bob can do it out on the trail runs or whatever. And Betty and Bob, those are, do you know Betty? I know a Betty. Do you know Bob? I know some Bobs. So I guess it's not irrelevant. Okay, Betty and Bob. So Betty and Bob do that, so I should be able to do that. And we're putting these standards on ourselves that we hurt ourselves in order to meet those standards. Because again, we want that acceptance, like I talked about last week. We have to start with, not looking at other people, but looking and accepting ourselves first. Okay, so validating your pain, like saying, ouch, just saying, ouch, literally, figuratively, ouch, I'm hurting. Listening. Giving yourself compassion by listening. And the last thing that I want to talk about is justice. So the other thing that would happen in this situation, this would be a kind, compassionate thing for this witness to do. So let's say, perpetrator kicks victim, and victim is hurt. Ouch! And witness says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? The next thing that would be compassionate is to look at the victim or the perpetrator and to say, that was not okay. That was wrong of you. I'm going to tell our teacher, or I'm going to tell my mom, or I'm going to tell my guardian. And then that, adult would become another witness. And if that adult is doing what's right, they would remedy the situation. They would look at the pain. They would witness the pain. They would witness the injustice and do something, whether through punishment or through consequences, some form of consequence for that perpetrator, so they learn not to do it again. And the victim maybe they could repair their relationship, perpetrator and victim. Eventually, maybe the perpetrator could say, sorry. There are literal situations that I did with my children on the playground when one kid would hit another. I would take him very seriously and remedy the situation on both sides. I was trying to be a good witness as an adult in the situation and not dismissing how horrible it is to abuse someone and hit someone in that way, and how painful it can be to be hit by someone. So the next thing that you can do is to remedy the situation, to protect yourself from this pain. And if we're talking about, big picture abusive situations, that would be like reaching out, getting help, leaving the situation, calling out the abuser for who they are, if at all, getting legal help so that the systems are on the side of the victim. And sadly, the government is not always a great witness for victims. And that's why we feel so angry a lot, right? Rightfully so. That's why we feel angry about injustices around racism, sexism, classism, because the government is not being a good witness and they're not protecting those who need it. But that's besides the point. Again, that's another story. The last thing you can do is protecting yourself, having some justice, practicing justice. Justice is compassion. Compassion is justice. Kindness is not being nice. Compassion is not being nice. It's not overlooking. It's not dismissing. Compassion is justice. So when someone says I love you, but they are actively hurting you and they're not doing anything about it, that's not love. That is denial, or you can call it whatever you want. But you need to do this for yourself too with your fitness. So if you realize, ouch, I'm hurting myself, and you listen to yourself and you acknowledge your pain and you're there for yourself like a compassionate witness, the next thing you need to do is practice some justice. You need to make changes. You can't keep doing that to yourself. You can't keep hurting yourself. And we have to start with that acceptance of I'm worthy and get into that and practice that. But we also have to stop the harmful behaviors from happening again, either through creating, environments in our lives where it's difficult to do that, or we're getting help from a coach or a therapist or a friend to support us, a loving person in our lives to support us in not hurting ourselves. If you're hurting yourself by the quality of the food that you're eating, things that make you feel just bad, remedy that by making changes with your food. Or if you are, you're exercising too much, you're pushing yourself too hard, you're overtraining, you're exhausted, you have to remedy that shit. You got to do something about it. Otherwise, you're just perpetuating the harm that you're causing yourself. And I know that it is really hard. And this is what I talk about a lot. I'm putting all these pieces together because fitness encourages us often to do things that hurt us, like, that those boot camp mindsets or those drill sergeant mindsets, or no pain, no gain. It's so encouraged and promoted, even in subtle ways. Like, it might not be outright, what was that movie? When you were a kid, did you watch that one where there's this, I forgot his name, but it was a comedian actor. He breaks his finger in the beginning of the movie, or the kids breaks his finger, and he's like some drill sergeant for kids. I don't know. But that mindset, it's not even always that extreme. It's just maybe even promoting, you have to lose this amount of weight, or promoting, you always have to put yourself in the gym, or always you always have to challenge yourself. I was listening to a podcast recently, and I won't say the name of the podcast. I'm not trying to bash anyone, but this guy, he was a really hard trainer. He was a professional athlete, and his daughter got an eating disorder, and he discovered it. And a part of me was so happy that, that this was a conversation that was had around fitness. And another part of me was surprised that he was surprised that his daughter would have one, just the way that he talked about training and always having to push yourself and challenge yourself. And that kind of mindset can be helpful in some situations, in some contexts, but in lots of ways, for a lot of us, it can be really harmful, especially when we're not coming from a place of self-compassion, which so many of us have trouble with already. So we have to just do something different. And this is why a big part of why I created the 4-H method and this program. It's like a framework, an idea, but it's also a program where you put these ideas into practice. We go into mindful movement, where it's about checking in with yourself, listening to yourself, making the changes that you need to make, where you're encouraged to practice those healthy habits that are healthy when you come at it with self-compassion. And we start with that framework in mind, not just, we're going to do these workouts and you got to push yourself and you got to reach this goal. Oh, you want to lose 50 pounds? Okay, we're going to do that no matter what. I'm going to help you lose 50 pounds, where that becomes the goal. No matter what, we'll have to, if you need to drop your calories, we'll do it. If you need to exercise more, we'll do it. That's not self-compassion. All right, so what is compassion? Why is it so hard for us? And how do we practice more compassion with ourselves? I hope that this was helpful for you. I still need to practice this. Sometimes I look back at my days and I realize I'm feeling tired and I'm feeling whack, and I realize, oh, I haven't been compassionate with myself. I've been kind of mean. I've been having high standards, and it's so subtle. It's like a little slimy monster that creeps up, and just you don't even notice it coming up. It's so subtle. So I'm not coming at this, I'm not sharing this from a place of I've arrived and I know what self-compassion is. No, fuck that. I'm still learning, and I'm just sharing with you what I have learned, and I hope that it's helpful for you. If you want to practice more self-compassion in regards to how you eat and how you exercise and how you see your body, take care of yourself, not in just pretty ideas, but in actual practices, the 4-H method could be a great place for you to get into that. And I would love to support you in it. There's more information in the link in my bio. But whether or not you join that, I hope that this was valuable for you. Let me know what you think, and be kind to yourself. Oh, wait, I wanted to share one more thing before I get off about compassion with others. We can only, and I'm going to share this really quickly before I get off, because I said I would, and I try to keep my word. I'm not even going to edit this to change it around. Just here I am. I told you I didn't have notes. This is what happens when I don't have notes. Compassion with others. We can only truly have compassion with others when we start with compassion for ourselves. When we are giving from a place of lack, or when you're giving from a place of expecting something from someone else, when we are giving from a place of I'm better than you and I need to save you, that is not compassion. That is not true compassion. Compassion witnesses the suffering and pain of another and seeks to alleviate it without causing pain to yourself. I'm learning this from Simone Seol in her course, The Way of the Dragon. She has this wonderful chapter on compassion and this wonderful discussion of compassion. So if you are being compassionate with others and helping someone else while you're hurting yourself, that is not compassion, because you are hurting yourself and you are just as worthy as any human being. So if in this situation with this kid at the playground, he's helping this kid, talking with him, if it causes him suffering or pain to do that, he's still hurting himself. So he's not practicing compassion for himself. We need to start with compassion for ourselves before we can give compassion, true compassion, to others. So when we have those ideas of I'm doing this as a way to earn my goodness, or I'm doing this as a way to distract myself from what I'm really going through, I'm numbing out, or I'm avoiding, that's causing pain to ourselves, and we can put that onto others as well. And again, not true compassion. So now we're concluded. Let me know if I forgot anything. I like you and I love you, and please be kind to yourself. Hey there, me one more time, because this is my podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. If you would be so kind and generous as to leave a review, a good review, it would mean a lot to the podcast and to growing this so more people can get a hold of it. If you would like to get more support, continue listening to this podcast. Follow me on Instagram, friend me on Facebook. You can find me in the link in the show notes. Always feel free to reach out to me. An email is always welcome. Happy to hear from you. And the best way that I actually can help you is, if and when you're ready, is for you to join the 4-H method. It's my signature program, and it helps you make your body your home and your health your hero journey, transforming your health and life from the inside out. Remember, you are worthy, you are powerful. Like you, love you, Coach Michelle.